The history of opera art in Tbilisi began in the middle of the 19th century. The first opera house was constructed in the capital between 1847 and 1851. It stood on what is now Freedom Square and included the caravanserai of Tamamshevi, a wealthy Tbilisi businessman. The building was constructed according to the project of architect Giovanni Scudieri, and the interior design of the theater was executed according to the sketches of artist Grigory Gagarin. This theater existed for 23 years. In 1874, it burned down in a huge fire that had broken out in the caravanserai. The building was completely ruined. It was never restored, but was rebuilt as a caravanserai only without the theater. In 1880, the question of constructing a new opera theater arose. A place was chosen for it on the Rustaveli Avenue, which in those days was called Golovin Avenue. The project was developed by Viktor Schroeter, a very productive architect from St. Petersburg who built extensively in different cities of the Russian Empire. Construction was completed in 1896. The so-called Moorish style, which was very popular in Europe and the Russian Empire at the time, and which implied the use of Islamic forms and elements, was employed for the opera house design. The opera house is a large, imposing building. Its facade is decorated with yellow and reddish horizontal stripes that are characteristic of Moorish architecture. In front of the main entrance is a large two-story portico adorned with Islamic ornaments. Decor characteristic of the Moorish style is used abundantly in the interior as well. Here one can find vegetal and geometric ornaments, sculpted muqarnas vaulting, mirror cladding, and pictorial decoration. Regarding its plan and structure, the opera house completely follows the standards of European theaters of the time. In the main hall, which can accommodate more than 1,000 spectators, the audience seats are arranged in an almost fan-shaped configuration so that it is easy to observe the stage from every corner. The parterre is surrounded by 5 tiers of balconies. There is a large rectangular stage which permits the use of large-scale scenery. The opera house was badly damaged by a fire which broke out in 1973. The main hall was almost completely destroyed, and over the following years, it was rebuilt largely according to the original design. It was a wonderful, fascinating acquisition for the city. The project is really good. It was really good from the outset. It was executed masterfully, with high quality. Fire broke out on May 9th, 1973. The building almost completely burned down. Part of the stage and the hall were ruined. In May or June of 1973, a competition was held. My colleague Murtaz Chachanidze and I were the winners. We are the authors of this reconstruction. What was our concept? To preserve Schroeter's original architecture. The reconstruction works lasted for 4 years. It was too little time to carry out such works.
It all began in 1848, when the foundation for a large opera house was laid on what is now Freedom Square. That's what was written in the newspaper Caucasus at that time. The theater opened on April 12th with a grand masquerade ball, news of which reached Paris and was published in the highly popular magazine Illustration. The creative stance was absolutely European from the beginning. This was the only important opera theater in Georgia. It was the only large European establishment in the entire Transcaucasian region. Europe came to Georgia through opera, and as such, with its help, the idea of staging Georgian opera arose. There are extant epistolary materials chronicling Peter Tchaikovsky's personal petition to the emperor for the allocation of money to construct the Tbilisi Opera House. Tchaikovsky saw how enthusiastically his operas were received in the theater and wrote to the emperor that Tbilisi deserved to have a decent opera house. It is of interest that at that time, the Russification policy was already so powerful in Georgia that the theater opened with the leading Russian propaganda opera. Mikhail Glinka's A Life for the Star, and this was the first opera stage a long time before the Declaration of Independence. In addition, the theater included all of the most important operas at that time in its repertoire: Italian, French, German, Russian, and others. At the same time, a drive toward Georgian opera began. By the end of the 19th century, the first fragments of Meliton Balanchuadze's Tamartspieri were already being performed. True, this took place in St. Petersburg, but it was the first Georgian opera. An intensive campaign and preparation for the creation of Georgian National Opera is connected with these dates. In 1918, a few days before the Declaration of Independence, these preparations were crowned with the performance of Christine by Revaz Gognishvili. It was very symbolic, the year of independence, so a kind of explosion in Georgian opera. The first 3 Georgian operas were performed on this very stage, in this building. In order, they were Dimitri Arakishvili's The Legend of Shota Rustaveli, Paliashvili's Absalom and Eteri, and Viktor Dolidze's Keto and Kote. This was followed by Daisy and many other Georgian operas, after which a rather intense flow of Georgian national opera began. We can call this building the cradle of Georgian opera. Georgian opera represented a hybrid, a mixture of Georgian folk and church music motifs together with European genres and forms. Zakaria Paliashvili said that the first Georgian opera was very important. We could announce to the entire world that we Georgians are a small nation, but so culturally well developed that we'll possess our own opera. We are with you. We are like you. It was positioning within the common European cultural space.
The premieres staged in Europe, especially in La Scala, were repeated for 2 years at most and then staged here. We still work according to these principles. We invite and stage the most interesting plays performed by the greatest artists. And not only does our theater troupe stage this performance, but the directors, singers, and conductors are also involved. This is extremely important for the development of our opera artists, for the exchange of information, and of course for the audience. Opera and ballet art are exceptional crafts involving several different directions. When the opera house was built, many Italian troupes performed on the stage, and many foreigners sang and took part in the ballet. I remember that Sergo Kobuladze and Sidamon Eristavi worked here before the war. Then Sergo left for Moscow. Later, a new generation came to the opera theater. Parna Lapiashvili and other artists worked at the theater. Goga Ignatov accomplished a great deal. I have done a lot, and Temur Ninua, Miriam Shvelidze, contributed something noteworthy. In such a way, there was a generational shift that coincided with the evolution of scenography. Sergo Kobuladze also worked at the Opera House. The curtain is his creation. Those artists, along with many others, had excellent taste. This is what influenced the taste of the audience.
The curtain for Tbilisi Opera House was created by Sergo Kobuladze, 1954-56, 1961. He made several sketches that featured a curtain at the top. It implied that a drapery was drawn over the main curtain. This is also an interesting nuance, since he painted a drapery that had a purposefully heavy, carpet-like texture and yet such softness that it descended so slowly. Now, how was it so? The public knew that it was a muse, the conditional figure of a muse. In his diaries, Mr. Kobuladze wrote that he wanted to portray or pose, but according to the commission, the figure was found to be similar to a female figure. The artist did not want to be involved in the dispute and gave up. It is the muse of music that leads the audience into the realm of music. 120 square meters is its total area, and the upper horizontal strip that divides the curtain at the top was 36 square meters. In size, it is very large. The opera house was turned into a single large workshop. The curtain was spread on the floor, and he worked this way. There was even one more sketch. It was made after the fire. Kobuladze had to reconstruct the curtain after it burned down in 1973, which necessitated the creation of a new sketch. It was a winged Pegasus with the muse of music riding it. However, that version is no longer in use. Kobuladze used the technique developed and employed by Italian Renaissance painters. Since the information about it had been lost, the artist had to work hard to restore the missing knowledge, at least to some extent. Even now, after all the discussion over it, I think it is undoubtedly among the finest pieces of Georgian art in general, not only because of the artist's work. The curtain of the opera house, which was repaired based on Sergo Kobuladze's sketches, is now a digital version that is polygraphed, printed, and it is of extreme interest regarding the continuation of history. At present, we show our audience both classical and modern performances. We are currently performing Swan Lake, and later we will perform a Balanchini program of extraordinary beauty, which we will later present in America. We will also show the American audience one of our most beloved ballets, Sagalobeli, which is probably our iconic landmark. Our opera house is so unique that I want the whole world to know about it, to realize what a beautiful opera house we have, how important this theater is today, how many people come here, how many people sing here, and in general, to pay attention to it, because this is probably one of the most beautiful sides of Georgian culture.